I want to introduce you to the people who have come here to be with you tonight. So I'm going to begin with someone I first interviewed back in 1993. She was in a movie I really loved called The Joy Luck Club. And she has been working nonstop for the past 25 years in movies, in daytime, and in primetime television. Now she's calling shots at St. Bonaventure Hospital as Allegra Aoki, one of today's powerful women of prime time. Please welcome to the stage, Tamlin Tamita. That is great. Our next panelist has a quarter of a century of acting on his very impressive resume. He also does movies and television, and audiences could know him for any number of things, perhaps playing Sheldon Hawkes on the long-running CSI New York, but now we know him as a very decisive surgeon who wants it all. He plays Dr. Marcus Andrews on The Good Doctor. Please welcome Hill Harper.
Hey, everybody!
And next up, we have a very talented actor who has an Emmy on his shelf for his work on the very award-winning series The West Wing. Some of his other series include Murder in the First, The Affair, and Ballers. He comes to The Good Doctor with about 30 years of experience on his resume, and he's been in TV's medical world before, having guested on both ER and Chicago Hope. These days, he's got a lot of clout as Dr. Aaron Glassman on The Good Doctor. He is Richard Schiff. Good to see you. And our next guest coming to the stage hails from the UK, and she is one of the show's young residents. She still has 8 years of professional acting experience under her belt, including work on the series Lovesick. On The Good Doctor, we get to see her heart every single week, thanks to her terrific performance as Dr. Claire Brown. Please welcome Antonia Thomas. Our next actor hit the scene in the late 1990s. I met him in the year 2000 as he was one of the stars of the groundbreaking Latino-themed primetime series Resurrection Boulevard. Now, he went on to continued success in hit shows like American Family, the rebooted Melrose Place, Pretty Little Liars, Being Mary Jane. He even was a bad guy on How to Get Away with Murder. Just last month, this is terrific, he was honored by the National Hispanic Media Coalition for his outstanding performance as Dr. Neil Melendez on The Good Doctor. So let's all say congratulations to Nicholas Gonzalez. I interviewed our next guest before he was a teenager, and I'm now realizing I'm just aging myself with every single intro. He has captivated audiences in films including Finding Neverland, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, August Rush. He also found great success on television for 5 seasons in his award-winning role as Norman Bates on the series Bates Motel. And now he is The Good Doctor. Please welcome to the stage Dr. Sean Murphy, Freddie Highmore. And the history lesson continues. On a beach in Hawaii in 2004, I met one of the nicest men in show business. He came to me on his day off to talk about this new show he was on. The show was called Lost, right? So he had had more than a decade of experience before Lost, but Lost really hit big. And after he did 116 episodes of that show, he immediately went into doing 168 episodes of Hawaii Five-0, and then immediately into this new role as one of the executive producers of The Good Doctor. He is actor, producer, and all-around nice guy, Daniel Dae Kim. Sit down. And our final panelist began writing for television in the 1990s, eventually winning an Emmy for writing an episode of House. He would serve as an executive producer on that long-running and critically acclaimed series, but he also worked in a producer capacity on several other shows, including Law & Order, Family Law, and Battle Creek. These days, he is the executive producer and the showrunner of The Good Doctor. Say hello to the big cheese, David Shore. I'll start on the other end with you, Tamlin, okay?
All righty.
When I talked about your character's power in my intro, I thought about how much I love her confidence. What do you love most about the character you play?
I love that she's portrayed as a calm and cool and collected person of high power, and I'm such a dork. Because to be blessed with the words that David Shore and the rest of our staff of gifted writers have presented me is a woman of color who happens to be running one of the most prestigious hospitals in the nation and is in charge of making sure that the hospital, San Jose St. Bonaventure, is run efficiently with this cast of characters who are portraying, really gifted surgeons and young residents of the hospital. So to be gifted with that character, and hopefully it'll be a long run, I just know that I have a lot to live up to the words written by David Shore and our writers, as well as your expectations, because we are hopefully reflecting what's going on in our society and in hospitals and in taking care of each other, life or death situations. That's what I'm really blessed with at this time. So thank you so very much, David, and all the other writers in our audience.
We'll keep coming down this way. Hill, this is a big commitment for you. You live on the East Coast. You shoot on the West Coast of Canada. How did you know it was worth that cross-country experience to do this show?
Well, first of all, I want to say none of us would have a job if it wasn't for fans and for you guys. Yeah. And we say thank you to you. This show is successful because of word of mouth and folks talking about it and you guys getting a ticket to come here and going through the rain and coming out. I mean, that's something you could see in in your own home in a couple of days. It's special. So thank you. And I guess it sort of speaks to the same answer, George. When I read the pilot, it was so well written, and TV is all about the writing. It's great to have a great cast, but if you don't have a script, if you don't have consistency with really high quality writing, there's no way, one, you're going to enjoy doing it, right. And there's no way that you can figure out a way to elevate it, and there's no way that it's worth doing. So I'll move wherever for great writing because it's actually rare, and that's real. And David Shore, I believe, is the best writer on television.
Do you think he said that? Do you think he said that because he wants to be in charge in season 2, episode 1?
How dare you? How dare you imply that might not be true? No, thank you. Thank you both. By the way, I think a number of our writers are here today as well. So
great writer.
That's it.
So I'll bring it down to Richard now, because Richard, I don't know if people know this in the audience, but I've long been a fan of the great actress Sheila Kelley. And I love that last week there was a woman in a coffee shop that you may or may not be falling in love with, and it is your real-life wife. How did this happen?
I lobbied to get her the job. No, David. It was David's idea. Actually, came to me and said, "How would you feel about?" And the look on his face was, "How do you feel about Sheila coming up to Vancouver?" as if it would be like a problem. Like he didn't know, he didn't really know what goes on in the household. I could not be more in love and in awe of my wife. And did a puppy just die? What happened? And so, but it was a little bit nervous. We don't get to act with each other very often. We played X's on NCIS, on which I was a terrorist. I can't explain that. And in a little movie called Santa Fe many years ago, and we have to flirt with each other on set in front of people. And my wife was just ecstatic and giddy over the idea of coming up and doing these scenes. And I have to say, I enjoyed every second of her being up there with me and being on the set. And what's also great about it is that she balanced out my acerbic nature on the set. And David, of course, is reacting first.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So the degree to which I am difficult is the degree to which my wife is not. Okay. And so
Fair enough.
I was an absolute joy.
So, Antonia, I think a lot of people can relate to the character you play because she wants it and she's going to get it, and if she has to do it herself, it's still going to happen. Not everyone gets the money to go to college or the money to go to medical school, so I think that is part of the great storytelling of your character.
Yeah.
Did you have something similar in your own life? I can't imagine things were just handed to you. Oh, you want a job? Take it. Did you have any almosts along the way?
Oh, I mean, I think the acting profession is full of almosts, you know. I mean, I've certainly dedicated my my adult life to kind of becoming an actor and kind of the graft and, you know, the almost misses and the almost opportunities and just got to keep going and, you know, and then you find yourself on an amazing show like this with some amazing people and amazing writing, you know, and, but yeah, it's, there are a lot of similarities, I think, between me and Claire. I think she's probably harder and more driven than I am, but, like, you know, I respect her as a character so much. She's incredible, and yeah, I've worked hard too to be where I am, and I'm so happy to be here.
I'm telling you, this audience is better than the Oscar audience, and I was in the Oscar audience, but way up there. So never appeared on camera. Talked about working hard. I think about you, Nicholas, because you're always working hard. I remember in 2000, Resurrection Boulevard, you were so excited to talk about it. I interviewed you for a movie called Water and Power, a very low-budget film. We met at a bar somewhere where they were doing the press day, and you were just as excited. But then I interviewed you for this show, and I think it's the most excited I've ever seen you and the most appreciative I've ever seen you. Why did you know? Because you knew that this was something. You can't say writing.
I know, it's like everybody's already said that, but I mean, that was the first thing. I mean, if we want to talk about how we knew from the
answer,
beginning.
then say that's the answer.
You know, because pilot season comes around and
but
you've
it was
got
like-
a lot to read.
But it was like you were a new actor reading something for the first time. It was so magical to you.
Well, because this is, to me, I believe that, you know, I've been doing this, you know, it's funny, I'm like twice Freddie's age, but we've been acting the same amount of time. very different sorts of projects, but it's like, this doesn't come along often. You know, whether it's the adulation from fans, but even just the satisfaction of this job. One of the things that I'm eternally grateful is that, you know, the powers that be on this show over here are right. You know, we're very adamant on who they brought into this job, you know, and put this cast of characters together, not just for, you know, our abilities, but ideally looking ahead and hoping we'd work well together. And I have to say that the way that this has all worked out and this opportunity to have great writing, that's what he said. I mean, I've spent my career, a big chunk of it with writing that sometimes was you know, subpar, or I didn't feel was, you know, great. But I mean, that's part of this job. You know, there's so many things that come along, there's so many opportunities, but at the same time, you pay your dues, you know, and you put out a lot of work and you learn. And I feel that so much of that came so we could do this show, you know, and it puts you in a particular place to be ready when you are handed good work, you know, constantly. People ask, you know, what do you want for Melinda's next season? And, you know, we spent, you know, on the red carpet answering that question, and honestly, like, I feel like I've been in such good hands that each time I open the script, I'm excited to see what's going to be there. And I'm excited for the path that this character has, because these are fully fleshed out characters. These are three-dimensional, diverse characters. You look at this group, that's what was so special about it. We all looked at each other. I remember at the end of the pilot, exhausted, freezing cold in that warehouse in Vancouver, and we said, they're never going to let us do this. They're never going to let us do this. We're having way too much fun. The work and the dedication that everybody here on stage has put together, I never thought they'd let us do it. So yeah, I'm on cloud nine, and this is, I think, the culmination of so many things for a lot of us, and to all be here at this moment together with this beautiful show. Nice. Blessed.
Freddie, I remember in the very first episode, all of your colleagues, including the man to your left, were not as accepting of you when you first walked into the hospital, but how each episode, the nuances of the acceptance and the understanding and them enjoying you learning what it means to say flirt as a character. I'm sorry.
I was really bemused at
That
the
is you,
start.
as Dr.
They
Sean
really
Murphy.
hated you in the pilot, and then you became a nicer guy as time went on. Like, why
Freddie,
did
we're
you?
still not accepting of you.
But yes,
What I'm
sorry.
saying is that now these other doctors are in your corner. Tonight's episode was a great example of that they're in Sean Murphy's corner. And I know that this is probably a dollar question that you get everywhere, but the community, the autism community, must respond to you every time you go out. There's a mother, a father, a grandmother, a teacher that comes up to you to say, is it thank you? What is it?
Hopefully, a positive reaction. No, I think that's what's been one of the most inspiring things of continually working on the show, is the positive reception that we've had from those either who have autism themselves or who know people who do. And I think, and David was obviously so careful about this with his writing, but Sean is never going to be able, nor should we try and make him be representative of everyone who is on the spectrum. In the same way that a neurotypical lead character of a TV show is never going to represent everyone who's neurotypical in the world. And so in constructing the character of Sean, it was, in order to make him authentic, it was remaining true to the realities of autism, but at the same time constructing Sean as an individual in his own right, finding out about his hopes and his desires and his sense of humor and the people that he falls in love with, or the people that he connects with that may not necessarily have anything to do with the fact that he has autism. And so I guess, of course, we hope that the show raises awareness to some extent, but it's also about following Sean on his own individual journey. And again, I mean, the question I think that isn't asked as much now as the show has gone on, but is Sean kind of portrayed as this superhero guy who's going to save everything? And I guess, if anything, this last episode shows both sides of Sean, the side of him that is truly genius and has insights into things that others don't. But at the same time, he makes mistakes. He makes mistakes that other people and neurotypical people perhaps may not. So that's a long-winded answer,
it's a good answer
to your question.
Good answer. Daniel, would you ever be a guest star on your own show?
I like the simple question.
Yes or no?
That's right. I would love to at some point. I'm such a fan, like these guys, of the writing. And so I also am such a fan of these actors. And, as satisfied as I've been, watching from behind the monitors or, watching the cuts at home, there's a part of me as an actor that really wants to play with such talented people. And so if there is the right storyline, if there's the right character and the right time, I wouldn't be surprised if I make an appearance sometime.
I think you got the support of the super crowd of fans.
Thank you, guys.
So you've also been a vocal advocate for inclusion and diversity, and I've been to the set in Vancouver, and I saw that. But tell people what they would see behind the scenes if they were on your set.
Well, you know, we have, thanks to David and the rest of the group behind the scenes, a very diverse group of writers as well, very talented, yes, exactly. So I'll cheer for that. You know, and it's important, I think, to have diversity not only in front of the camera, but behind it. So, So, you know, I couldn't be prouder of the team that I'm working with because I know that that is, you know, important across the board. And it's something that David and I have talked about many times and our whole producing team. So it's something that, you know, I can be proud of. You know, the most important thing is that we make, you know, an entertaining show. And we're doing it with a diverse group of people working at the highest caliber of television.
You're ahead of the curve, I think, in television.
You think so?
I think so, I do.
Well,
I'm glad.
Yeah, that's a good place to be.
Now let's play Embarrass the Actors just a little bit. And you're the one.
Well, before you answer, I feel I have to address a couple things. First of all, you know, they've said such lovely things about the writing. I feel I should say lovely things about the acting.
Out of obligation.
And how wonderful they are. But Daniel did it already, so I don't feel the need anymore. No, we have a tremendous cast, diverse or not diverse. We just have an incredibly talented group of people.
It's real.
Who are a pleasure
real
to work with. But I also want to say, you know, in reference to Daniel, you had a chance. You were in the pilot.
That's right. I didn't make the cut.
We cut him out. We cut him out.
That's true.
I think it feels real world, and I appreciate that as a viewer. Now, I said about embarrassing. When I ask this one question of an actor, they never want to answer it. They're afraid to ask so they could answer it, so I'm going to ask you. If I were to ask, like Nick, do you know why they chose you? Oh, I would never dare to ask. So why did you choose Freddie, Nick, Antonia, Richard, Hill, and Tammy?
Wow.
I mean, it's actually, they were good. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really...
Who else was good that could have been Freddie's role?
Nobody we saw, frankly.
I knew I wasn't going to get an answer to that.
No, but I mean, no, it really was that. I mean, they came in, or we saw tapes of them, and we're familiar with their work, and they were just really good and really compelling. I met with Freddie, and we had an excellent breakfast, the two of us and our director, Seth Gordon, and it was we saw the character the same way, and then, you know, it just, I'd love to give you there is no answer other than they were just great, and they've continued to be great. Seth and collectively the producers, I believe, did, I'm going to turn this into a compliment to us, how brilliant we were for identifying their brilliance.
All right, I'll accept that as an answer. Tamlin, is there going to be more romance with that younger man?
I would love to see, to see it flesh out. I think it is such a potent seed that our staff of writers had planted, and I'm sure that every single one of you in this room would love to see it come to fruition. I keep putting agricultural terms, but I think it'll be a very, very different side of her that hopefully you'll all be able to see.
Hill, your character and his wife want a family, and you're a new dad. Did that play with your mind in any way while you were shooting those scenes?
Absolutely. You know, there's so many things that I didn't expect being, you know, a single father, and I'm trying to still figure it out as I go. And but I will say the number one thing is it's the greatest blessing in my life that my son chose me to be his dad. And this character who desperately wanted to be a father, the idea of him potentially not being able to have that blessing is something that is, you know, that played with the idea, at least for me, of intention, and what does it mean if that can't happen? And what are the options? And particularly someone who is a powerful character and has a big ego, that sees himself as being able to solve problems, has been able to solve problems in his life, but this is something that perhaps he may not be able to solve. And obviously we'll see how it evolves. I have no idea how it does. It's just like the same point that when people on social media or whatever, or they come up to me on the street and they say, you're the bad doctor on the good doctor, the mean doctor on the good doctor. And he's not really that, and that's what I love about how it's been written is that.
We'll be the judge of that.
Okay, you may say that. But he has ambition, and he sees the world in a specific way, and therefore he acts on that. And I think that seeing the home life has been able to show the audience a level of vulnerability that he may not reveal with his colleagues. And I think that that's a beautiful duality, and I think that's going to be true for all the characters as you see more of our home lives.
Richard, you've picked a lot of thought-provoking projects over your career. I just wonder if you're a thinker and are you an overthinker, a thinker? Do you do the New York Times crossword puzzle on Sundays? I always find you to be very smart. You're making me nervous.
You know why people think I'm smart? Because I don't talk a lot. So I'm going to sit here and not respond to that question.
Okay. Antonio, you think we'll see your mom again?
I was kidding, but you can move along.
No. You can answer the question.
Am I a thinker? Is that basically the question?
Yeah.
I got a cue. I think the first acting class I ever took, it was with Earl Gister. Does anyone remember Earl Gister? No. He ran the Yale School of Drama years after City College of New York, where I was with him. And he was a master, actually. And first year of the class, and I didn't even know what the hell I was doing in that program because I didn't want to be an actor. But I found myself there. And the very first day, he says, acting, people, isn't for those that are smart, Richard. So he already had figured out that I'm one of those. Yeah, I used to be a thinker. I've learned to turn off my brain quite a bit more as I, get closer to senility, and I'm really enjoying it. But yeah, I do think a little.
And now for a reenactment, turn left and say that acting coach's name.
Earl Gister. Why? Do you know Earl?
My love, Daniel Blinkoff, he speaks of Earl Gister like his acting father. And just to hear that connection, we have the Gister Method book, and it's not being a trained actor and working with the likes of you and Freddie and Nick and Hill. I try to read that book and I try to make the other actor feel what Earl says. It's like, it's not about feeling stuff, it's about how you make the other actor feel.
That's right.
And it distilled it for me, and through my love, he's standing over there.
Where did he work with Earl?
I'm just, at Yale.
Oh, at Yale. Oh, whoa.
I'm sorry. So I'm just thrilled at that connection. So.
Earl was very, very special and very brilliant, in fact. And we used to sit and talk over really bad cups of coffee from the City College cafeteria for hours and hours about theater and politics in the world. And he was a brilliant, brilliant man.
Yeah.
So, Antonia, your mom, is she coming back? I like that we get little dribs and drabs along the way of people's characters, and that's what I want to know from you. Have you asked these guys?
David? I mean, I hope so. I was so excited by the inclusion of Claire's mom and her background. As you say, we've been sort of drip-feeding this idea that she, came from a relatively kind of tough upbringing, and to meet my mom and for her to, to turn up was really exciting. And I hope that we kind of get to explore that in season 2. I don't know, David, but
and I hope she pays you back. All right, this is the question, Nick, that's been driving me crazy. No. That tattoo of yours has become a character on the show, and you won't tell us the backstory. I know there is a backstory.
And the
not from
more you ask, George, the less of an answer is going to come. I'm telling you.
Who wants to know about that tattoo?
David's regretting it. That's what I'll tell you. I'll tell you one thing is David Shore is regretting the tattoo now. That's
Here, I
so
can
much.
tell you this, when you came to me and started talking about the tattoo, you start talking about the location of the tattoo, and you go right here, and I expect you to pull your shirt over, and he just pulls his shirt right off. And I was impressed. Whatever tattoo you want to put on there.
So there's no answer to that yet?
You know, it's, actually there was a draft where there was an explanation for it, and there's been multiple references sometimes that we've in turn gleaned out sometimes, where it's just, I feel like it's something important, and I know for me and for Melendez, parts of it, I feel like there's some backstory that, you know, hopefully we have a long way to go. And, you know, I think that everyone's so anxious about people to hook up and for tattoos to be revealed and all these kind of things. And it's like, and I get it because, you know, our favorite shows sometimes aren't here, but hopefully we will be and these answers will come. But it's the same thing like with romantic, you know, romantic possibilities and things that people kind of, oh no, I hit there. Hi. I didn't see you, I didn't know you were there. You know, I think that's the way this show is also kind of like the way life is, you know, like Andrews isn't a bad guy, right, so he says. But, you know, it's the way life kind of really functions. There's attractions, there's when we get to understand each other and have close moments, but it doesn't always mean that things are gonna come from there or they're gonna come soon. You know, I don't know. But the tattoo, yeah, the tattoos, you know.
Okay, we'll wait. I'm patient.
Seems everybody wants to know, I wish I'd.
Freddie, this is a question just for me as a viewer, and I'm curious to know how it reflects with you and the actors, because actors will often tell me how they're working on a scene and it's all about making contact with that co-star, working with that co-star, seeing that co-star. And you have mastered this eye aversion that is done so well, but I sometimes wonder if it's harder for the other actors when you're not necessarily looking at them, or harder for you because you're doing double duty. Why are you laughing, Nick? Is it back to the tattoo?
I feel like it's harder for them. I mean, I guess
Is it harder for them?
Probably. I think that Sean, I don't know, you're kind of in your, maybe the difference, just as from both sides, is that you sort of have traditional ways of like resolving scenes or of getting points across or of building arcs and emotional arcs in scenes that you've come to rely on over time. I mean, I've never studied acting, but you kind of have to reevaluate those ways of expressing emotion, or as others were speaking about, of getting emotion out of others or finding those moments of connection. Because Sean has those moments of connection. They're just not necessarily expressed in a way that we're used to. But for me, I feel like as long as I'm internally there inside my head, then I just, you know, see what they do and hope that there's something there for them, as long as I'm believing it inside.
I'm watching them sometimes to see, so for the 5 of you on the other side of Freddie, raise your hand if it is a little bit harder to do a scene like that. No?
For me it is, because I'm always trying to get, like, look at me. So I'm moving. He's over there. I'm like, hey, man. It's hard. It's hard. It's like, look at me, man. Look at me.
But in other ways, it plays into it, though, too, because, I mean, it's a very, like, when people ask about, hey, what's it like working with Freddie Highmore and those kind of things, and about the performance, to me, and I think I speak for, you know, because we all talk about you behind your back. This is a living, breathing performance. It's Dr. Sean Murphy lives, and I watch him grow. I watch him learn. That's my job as his attending. And so when that's happening, there are all the same questions that Melendez would have in his head. The same, are you listening to me? Are you hear the words that are coming out of my mouth? You know, when do I know that he's understanding, and when don't I? And so for a lot of us, it plays into it. It's non-traditional, but you know, so is this show in many ways.
As long as we keep getting, I mean, that's it. I mean, there's a temptation sometimes to get drawn into normalcy, for want of a better word. And I think what separates this show is he is, I hope, and I know, actually, he is specific and he is real and he communicates so much, but not in a traditional way. And equally important, the people around him respond to that in an honest way.
So these other panels this week, I've noticed, have given scoops to their audiences, and I know you don't want to disappoint all of these people here. So I'm sure that David or Daniel will be telling us something about what we can look ahead to for next season.
We just aired the episode.
I'm talking about
4
next
days
season.
in
I'm
advance.
stingy.
But that's already gone. That's past. That's been tweeted out, and it's, you know, next.
Sean's gonna go jet skiing or something.
Do you have any plans to bring in a new character?
We brought in some new characters towards the end of the season, and we enjoyed them, so we'll hopefully see a lot more of them going forward. And just the writer's room is going to be starting up, and sooner than, you know, it all happens so fast, and I'm looking forward to exploring the fallout of what you just saw, and going back to Nick's question, I mean, all these questions, all those things, Nick's answer I thought was right on about just exploring these things slowly but honestly and finding every ounce of dramatic and real life significance to them. That's what we want to do going forward, and I think we have such a great opportunity with this world. So I'm looking forward to exploring how
Daniel's character grows.
That's right.
Daniel's character is going to be number one on our list.
All about me.
We're going to open it up to Q&A in just a moment, but I will ask you one question before we do that, Daniel. At the beginning, or sometimes a little bit in the middle of the show, we see this graphic come up about giving the courtesy to the Korean broadcasting. I've never seen that on any other show before. So tell me the origin of why that is always front and center.
Right. Well, you know, to those of you who don't know, The Good Doctor originated in Korea. It was a very popular Korean drama in the year 2013. And Korean shows, unlike American shows, actually don't go multiple seasons. They'll go for one season from you know, as few as 15 episodes to as many as 22 or 23. And so the origins of this show are from that Korean show. And we have, we proudly say that, you know, we proudly give credit to those people who created the original. It's different from our show, and I strongly encourage all of you to see it. But it's actually the first Korean drama to be brought over in this way and to be going into a second season. So it's yeah.
Are you ready to ask some questions? So, Freddie, why don't you pick somebody first?
I have to pick someone?
Yeah, I want you to pick someone. Imagine the story they'll tell when they get home. Freddie Highmore called on me.
And all the people that
just
didn't
like-
pick, Freddie Highmore didn't pick me.
I mean, the first guy I saw with his hand up on the aisle there, it was like one of the first hands. So
Okay.
go ahead.
Thank you.
please.
Just want to say congratulations to you guys on your success. My name's AJ Billions. Casting process, you mentioned the casting process. So I'm just curious, were any of you just offered the role because like it was kind of written for you, or did you all audition for the role? And then during the audition, how'd you prepare for your audition? And then once you got the role, how'd you kind of do the backstory on your character?
Wow.
I think that's
I'll take this one. No, I'm kidding.
of that question. There's about 87 questions.
Who's I get well. This will be like the end of the Q&A as we all go through and describe the. I guess for me the conversation with David and Seth was what sort of sparked the creation of Sean and in terms of the autism, I guess, and the research that we did, like we traded back and forth, you know, pieces of literature that we found useful. We have a great consultant who's been on board since the very beginning, Melissa Reiner, who's here, I think. I mean, I've seen her, but I think she stayed. There we are. You didn't leave us. And documentaries too. I mean, there was a particular one called Autism in Love that I found particularly useful in that it focused not on the negative possibilities that a life with autism leads to, but on the most positive emotion of all, of love. And hopefully we try and focus on, not purely the struggles that Sean faces by dint of having autism, but celebrate the way in which he sees the world differently. So I guess that was the starting point for me in constructing him and talking to David.
Thank you for the question. Anyone else? Okay, so you're standing, so I'm going to call on you before you fall out of the chair.
Dangerous precedent.
Hi, my name is Pierre. I'm an agent and from Canada, actually. So it's very nice that this amazing show is done in Canada. My question is, you had a little brother at the beginning of the series, and I think everybody loved that character. And then you brought him back as a patient who was maybe died, maybe he didn't die. I can't remember this kid's name. He was amazing. Are you planning on bringing him back? What was the journey? Why did you bring him back? Did he become extremely popular? So that's like my question about this actor.
He was fantastic. The two people that played the younger versions were both tremendous and a pleasure to work with. And we did the flashbacks in that pilot, and we wanted to continue to do them because we thought they worked very nicely to reveal some of his backstory for a while. And then we just kept wanting to use him. Unfortunately, in the past, spoiler alert on the pilot, he's dead. But we had to find, and then in the writer's room, the idea came back of what if he basically thinks he's seeing his brother, and what impact. The question is always, when you come up with a medical story or any of the stories, is what impact will that have on our people? And we thought that would be interesting to watch Dr. Murphy with him again.
And Dylan's getting too old too.
That's our big issue. We're trying to keep him from growing. We're trying to get him to smoke.
He was at the rap.
Stunt his growth.
He was at the rap party, and he promised to smoke and drink a lot of coffee and stay small. I didn't ask him to do that, but I didn't.
We're going to keep him like a little toy poodle.
The lady with the long sweater on.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. So one of the storylines that I really enjoyed from this season was the one with Claire and the sexual harassment. And as the season progressed, we kind of got a little bit more on that, where she's starting a case. And I know that as we've added new characters, that storyline has kind of fallen into the cracks. I'm just kind of wondering, for second season, will that come back as well? Because I know it came at a very important time with what's going on in the industry and outside the industry as well. So I'm just wondering, will we get to see the continuation of this specific case?
It is an important story, and we started working on it before that issue became quite so high profile. I'm not sure we're going to go much further. To me, the resolution of that story, we did carry it forward. It was important that it not just be a one-off. It was important that she carry that the character carries that with her. You may want to comment on this as well, but to me, the resolution of the story was when she took it upon herself to not just accept it and to reach out and look for other people who had a shared experience.
Yeah. It's the positive action that women can take in the face of being in a situation like that. And she, which was so beautifully written by David and the writers, she refused to be victimized and galvanized herself and fought and stood up and, went to the other women and brought a case. In that respect, that I suppose there is a resolution to it. She didn't just take it lying down.
I saw a lady with glasses that right in there with the.
Hello. So, first off, I just have to say that Freddie Highmore's autism portrayal is extremely accurate, but this show does more than that. It also addresses a lot of really heated ethical issues concerning it, such as like the sexuality and romantic capabilities of people on the spectrum. Like you have Sean in a relationship at one point. You have the episode Pipes, which is about people questioning whether or not like he can feel attraction like everyone else. And you also see his platonic relationships with Dr. Glassman and his friends and his brother. So like how have you been going about how to accurately and sensitively portray that?
Thank you. As we've done research, to a certain extent, it's treating the character as a human being, frankly, as simple as that again. And recognizing that he goes through what everybody else does, just in a different way. And we want to continue doing that. We want to continue taking those steps forward slowly, but exploring, I mean, that hug. I mean, to me, you know, on another show, the fact that he reached out and hugged Dr. Glassman, another show, that's nothing, but we are aware that the little things he does can mean a lot, and we're enjoying, frankly, exploring those things and studying those things.
Yeah, and I think seeing how Sean changes over time too. I guess another question with regard to the autism that I'd often get at the start was, how will Sean, or how can he change? He will always have autism, and it's such a like narrow-minded way of looking at it, because yes, he will always have autism, but he can still grow so much as a person. And I think perhaps compared to other, I guess I would be careful before like being bad at putting other shows down, but I think broadcast shows in general encourage a certain amount of stability, and that characters are the same week in, week out, and you come to the show and you know what you're going to get and you're expecting to see it. But I think with a character like Sean, he has to change, and he's changed dramatically in this first season, and he's still the same person, but to get to see that progression and how he adapts to this new environment, which to him at the beginning was very new, and this big city and the codes and the rules that are put on him, and see how he's grown in confidence and become more assertive at times in stating his opinion, I think is all part of that character arc for him. And at the same time, what I love about David's writing is that it's not, people talk about acceptance or tolerance as if it's purely about accepting Sean for who he is, but putting up with him, or like putting up for what he may be, in which ways he may be different to others, but just making do with the fact that he's there. But I think this more than that is people learn from Sean. He doesn't just adapt to the environment around him, but people around him adapt and learn and change because of him and because of questions that he's asking, or because of ways that he encourages us to see the world in a different way.
Thank you for your question. We have time for a couple more. The lady in red in the front row has had her hand up for the whole time, so we should call on her.
We've all been discussing how serious the show is and the great things that you bring out. With all the medical jargon and everything, we know that George Clooney was the character, the jokester on ER. Which of you, who of you is the jokester on the show? Behind the scenes. Everybody can't be that serious all the time.
Before we answer that, can I just say that I thought Fiona Gubelman did such a great job with that chunk of medical jargon tonight. and it leads me to want to give a shout out to the other actors who aren't on the stage tonight. Chuku Modu, Bo Garrett, Fiona Gubelman, Will-Yun Lee, Christina Chang. They're all part of this ensemble, and you know, they're doing great work along with all of these actors.
And we still don't have a character?
Who's the jokester?
I think Hill's smiling the biggest. I'm guessing it's Hill Harper.
What
would you say? I don't know. Is it you?
I joke around. I do.
Richard. Who's the least
We stole a
professional?
gurney one time, and then Nick jumped on it, Antonia jumped on it.
We did do that.
We didn't have a driver. I was pushing as fast as I could down the hallway, and then it ended up crashing.
That was very naughty.
We did do that.
Yeah, we did that.
So there is some fun being had that one time.
Yeah, just that one.
You know, also, I just want to recognize somebody who's here. Kobe Bird, you stand up.
Who was in an episode.
A very important episode.
Why don't, go ahead and explain it, because it's a big deal.
Go ahead.
David, you want to?
Go for it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think one of the main things we also get to is people say, you know, when are you going to have an actor with autism on the show? And when are you going to, you know, faithfully? A lot of people love to ask questions, and some people that don't even watch the show. Most of those questions come from people that don't watch, because once you watch, you see, you know, all the consideration that's taken in the show. But it's very important that we had an actor and someone that has autism, and I think he did a brilliant job. And to this day, he's still in touch with Kobe. And we all keep in touch with Kobe, and we were all moved by his performance. He's an excellent actor, and definitely deserves the shout-out. But it was very important to have a portrayal, and he ran away with it. It was such a great job, brother.
Okay.
Thank you.
Richard, I want you to think about this long and hard. I want you to look out in the audience, left to right. This is the last question of the evening. Who gets to ask it?
The woman in the red, way in the back.
The woman in the red, way in the back. Is that
Yeah, the
over
one
there?
that's hands up.
Yeah, jumping up and down, I think.
She's been jumping up and down for about an hour and a half.
So I have a question for Antonia. I'm an actress. So I have a question. So for like being a doctor and like doing all these surgeries and that stuff, I just want to know how you portrayed that in the audition room.
Well, in the audition room, I don't think we had any surgery scenes, thankfully, because I hadn't, at that point, done my research, and so I wouldn't have been able to know what I was doing. Yeah, we didn't do the surgery scenes in the audition room, but I think it was, I can't remember what my audition scene was. Do you remember, David? It was...
Do you?
Wasn't it the one with us walking down the hallway?
Yeah, we did that.
That was cut from the
yeah, it was actually...
Wasn't in the episode.
She stunk it up so bad.
The audition scene was a very medical jargon-filled scene. I think it was sort of like, can you do this? And especially because I was doing it with the American accent, it was especially a tongue twister. So
A very good American accent.
Thanks, Daniel.
I would like to say to all of you, what a polite audience you've been, and a really intelligent audience. You've asked some great questions tonight, and I'd like to say thank you for being here, and then we also want to thank our panel, Tamlin, Hill, Richard, Antonia, Nicholas, Freddie, Daniel, and David. Good night.